Farmers, advisors, councils and government-appointed scientists have been blindsided by the news nitrogen fertiliser will be capped from next year. This is at a maximum of 190 kilos a hectare, and this is part of the Action for Healthy Waterways policy. And a story out now in this week's Farmers Weekly, which you can read online, farmersweekly.co.nz. Richard Rennie has done a great story talking to a range of people. It's titled End Limit Surprises. Ravensdown Innovation and Strategy General Manager Mike Manning said the cap invites farmers falling below it just to simply ramp up application. Mike joins us now. Good evening, sir.
Sarah, good evening. How are you?
Good. Mike, have you had any further developments since this article in understanding the intention for Action for Healthy Waterways? And I particularly want to see my question to you is the difference between what is going to be a blanket national standard and the difference and variance between our regional council standards.
Sure. So look, the first thing about the national cap, if you like, Sarah, promulgated at 190 kilograms of N, is disappointment. Just to contextualise that, if I could briefly, and the reason for the disappointment is this, that we all know the evidence is really, really clear that what affects water quality, which we're so all interested in, is the losses from the farm. Tinkering around with those other things doesn't directly influence that. Let's model, let's measure, let's understand, let's mitigate the losses from the farm that affects water quality. Now, we'd all started down that path, and indeed Overseer, which we've put money into and the Crown has put money into, does exactly that. It's aimed at those losses coming from the farm, not tinkering with the inputs. And so to go backwards just seems to be so retrograde and disappointing.
Okay, so clarify this to me. Outputs usually are connected to inputs, and leaching is usually connected to a farm management system, which has obviously come about from the growth in dry matter from the input, such as nitrogen.
Look, you're right. The key thing is there are a mosaic of farm systems, and as a consequence, there's a mosaic of footprints. And rather than tinkering with those inputs, let's measure what exactly the farm system the farmer is choosing to run, what inputs he's using or not, and what's the losses. And if the losses are above the limits typically set by regional councils, right, what then can we do to modify the farm system in particular? And Lincoln University did this. What can we do to modify the farm system to reduce the losses? That's where the golden nuggets lie, not, as you say, tinkering with, well, you know, what types of fertiliser am I using, or what types of pastures, or what types of stock, or what types of systems. Trying to be prescriptive about that is probably not smart. Looking at the losses, measuring, modelling those, and mitigating those is probably the big opportunity where it lies.
And Massey University freshwater ecologist Professor Russell Death agrees with you in that the cap is merely a sticky plaster. What other tools could the government have put in place to ensure that farmers actually stood up in terms of their farm management practices and acknowledged those nitrogen losses in another type of measurement?
Sure. So one of the areas the Crown has, and I was at Mystery Creek about this time last year, Sarah, where the Prime Minister and the Minister for the Environment, David Parker, and the Minister for Agriculture, Damien O'Connor, released the package of helping farmers. Among those package of assistance given was some $40 million on Overseer. So that was a really good signal. I think if we look at how far Overseer has come since then, probably not fast enough, despite some money being available. So if we could speed up the developments in Overseer as a model enabling smart decisions to be made to reduce losses, that'd be one area. To go faster in that area as opposed to what Russell Death said is sort of tinkering with the sticking plaster. So that's one area I would say. Go fast with Overseer, for example, so that we get better control and management of the outputs.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, before I get into your pulpit that you've written for Farmers Weekly, Mike, around the lazy label of regenerative agriculture, I just want to explore the proposed cap on dairy farmers, and how considerable will this be across different regions around New Zealand, reducing that to 190 kilos?
That's a good question, Sarah. So all regions in our modelling will be affected, but Canterbury mostly among the regions. But all regions will be affected. But as you appreciate, in any range or population of farmers, say in Waikato or Taranaki, above plenty, there'll be a range of them. At the top end of that range in those areas, we'll have to come back to the 190 cap. But in the places like Canterbury, up 2/3, up to 3/4 of farmers will be affected by this cap. That effect will flow through to production and their profitability and export revenue to the country. So it's material. It's material for the country at a time when the country most needs the export revenue. So it seems an odd thing to be doing, in my view.
Mike, I do have to ask, being an employee of Ravensdown, a fertiliser company, is this cap certainly because of the profitability of your company? Because I know that you've heavily been involved in innovation to reduce and have precision of fertiliser and reduce the need for as much.
That's right, Sarah. So we're fortunate that Ravensdown is a cooperative and it's run by the farmers. And the farmers who sit on the board of Ravensdown say, look, we want the best technology for our farmers. Now, if it means less fertiliser sold, that is fine with us. We'll right-size our business to suit. There's never been a problem or a reticence to use technology or systems that reduce fertiliser, because that would be in the interest of the cooperative members. So we're prepared, and the directors are prepared to right-size the business if the technology would lead us in that direction. So that's the power of a cooperative. You make a profit, you don't maximise the profit, and if you need to right-size the business, then the directors are up to do that.
And what if your farmer shareholders want to pursue regenerative agriculture, Mike?
They're at liberty to do whatever they want. And so we absolutely respect their right as people who want to follow the organic route or the biodynamic route or the biological route or any other route. That's their choice. We respect it. What we are empowered to do is give good science to our farmers to make an informed choice, so that when they do choose, they have the best information. And that's really what we're empowered to do and strive to do, Sarah.
So yourself and Jacqueline have had a lot of things to say about regenerative agriculture and the government's support of that particularly. Could you please explain why the government and the primary sector council's vision shouldn't include the word regenerative?
So it's contextualising it. In many ways, fortunately, New Zealand is almost an exemplar of many of the principles of regenerative agriculture. For example, good organic matter levels in our soils. So if you look at our pasture soils, often the envy of the world for organic matter level. Second one is that the soil should be covered in pastures for most, or plants for most of the year. Pastures are. That the pastures or plants should be grazed by animals. New Zealand pastures are. So many of the things that they talk about, we already do. I think the opportunity lies more for people in Europe and the US, I think, Sarah, than New Zealand. Can we learn things from some of their regenerative systems? Yes, we can. Are we miles behind? No, we're not. Are we, in my view, the exemplar of agriculture on this sort of basis in the world? Yes, we are. So I think it's once people understand, hey, we can pick up a few things, and we should, but are we miles behind? No. So there's no need, I don't think, to tip the system upside down.
Okay, Mike, last winter we saw an anti-winter grazing campaign explode in Southland, and incredible sediment runoff and loss from poor break feeding behaviour in Southland. And so you're still saying that you believe we're an exemplar in the world in regards to our grazing management systems?
Look, I do. Does it mean we get it perfect? No. Are there some things we can improve on? Yes. But if you look at the biggest part of our farming system, it's pasture. And for the most part done well. Yes, there are things, and you've pointed to some, that we could and should and must do better. But overall, the gap's small rather than big. It's not a chasm, it's a gap. So yes, you're right in South and Sarah, we must do better and we can do better. but that shouldn't condemn our whole pastoral farming system.
So why come out and call it a lazy label?
Well, because I think the people who promulgate it just need to sit down and have a good, hard look at the science. And if you would do that, you would see the evidence is that we're performing pretty well. It's not to be arrogant, because it's not who we are as a nation, but we are performing pretty well. So what we just say is pause, examine the science, pick up the publications, understand why I've been doing rotational grazing since the 40s and 50s. Understand those things, and many of the principles you espouse we're already doing. Can we do something better? Yes. Need we do something better? Yes. But is the gap big or small? I subscribe it's small.
And would you look to collaborate on some of that scientific funding and work into, bringing that chasm you explained together around what is best for your farmer shareholders, Mike?
Absolutely, we would. So I've written some articles. Our Chief Scientific Officer, Ance Roberts, has written them. Jacqueline Routh has written them, and others have written them, and say, look, here's the information available. We'll list the publications. We'll list the data where it came from. We'll encourage you to do the work and have a look at it. So we're more than happy to cooperate and show you where it is. We think we've got some room for improvement, yes, but as you say, not a chasm the size of the Grand Canyon.
Thank you so much, Mike. I always enjoy our chats. Mike Manning is the General Manager of Innovation and Strategy at Ravensdown.
This is Sarah's Country.